Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Aaron Trevino here, and we have a wonderful guest. We have George from Houston, Texas. How you doing, George?
Doing great, Aaron. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we'd had this in the works for a little bit, so it's great to see you and great to have you on the show.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. This is actually my first podcast, so this is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great to hear, George. Well, for those of us who aren't familiar with you, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is George Oggero. I am the owner of the Oggero Law Firm and soon to be launched Modern Title LLC. And I'm very excited about launching my own title company. I am a native Houstonian. I grew up on the southeast side of Houston and attended Texas A&M for my undergrad and then South Texas College of Law for law school. And I have been an attorney for almost 14 years now. And my practice primarily deals with real estate issues and all things ancillary to real estate, which can include litigation, probate, estate planning, business entity formation and management, property tax protests, uh, and of course title issues. And but I also do some outside general counsel services as well for companies that just need a lawyer. Everything I do is on a flat fee, so I don't really subscribe to the antiquated hourly billing method. I look at a project or something that's come up and discuss it with the client or possible client, and then price it a certain way that is beneficial to both of us, so that if it takes too long, longer than we thought, they don't get punished. But if I'm efficient in what I do, then uh, if I run an efficient practice, then I'm rewarded for those efficiencies. I have a wife, been married for almost 17 years. We have 5 children, including 2 sets of twins, and all of that keeps me very busy.
Wow, that's awesome, George. I like to hear that. Um, Yeah, I'm just interested as well, a bit about your background. From a young age, did you always see yourself working in real estate, or kind of how did you get into this industry?
It was always around. My dad did a lot of real estate work growing up with various partners, and we're always involved in putting some kind of a deal together, mostly commercial aspects and development. And never really, I was always around it and it was always there, but I never really saw it as something I was going to do. But the one thing my dad always told me was it didn't care what I did. It just he always advised to do something where you are positioned to work for yourself if you have to, and not have to rely on somebody else. So for me, law school made sense because I always knew I could open up my own practice and just start practicing law if I ever, if I ever needed to. And so I started my career though in the oil and gas industry and dealt with a lot of surface owners and property owners. So I had that nice balance of learning about mineral rights, but also dealing with surface rights, and then spent time in the corporate world as lawyer for a couple of different companies, again dealing with general business issues, leases, commercial leases, just your general corporate documents, and investments and things of that nature. And then finally, just decided to go out on my own almost 4 years ago, and immediately gravitated towards real estate, uh, because there's just always a need for that, and particularly real estate investment. And so my practice is very friendly to real estate investors. My title company is very friendly to real estate investors because I am one myself. I have a partner, and we have a few different properties and projects around Houston that we're, trying to develop and get launched. And it's just a it's just a very vibrant industry, and it's something that if you work hard, it really doesn't have a ceiling. Anyone can get involved in this and experience success if they do it the right way and have the right people working with them along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's neat how, a lot of your background kind of melded together, right? You had the oil and gas, you had your dad encouraging you as well to explore some options here, and it all kind of came together.
It did, and I really enjoy it. I've been doing this, like I said, I've been a lawyer for 14 years now, and on my own for about 4, and have just had the opportunity to meet and advise really great people and help them with their success, um, or take steps to achieve their success. And that in part is why I wanted to form my own title company, because I believe in the efficiency of a lawyer having a title company. It's a one-stop uh, shop for any issues that can come up. Uh, I've worked with various title companies in Houston, and I've seen the delays that can come about when, well, we have to ask a lawyer, we have to wait for this attorney. And in fact, that was in part uh, the issue I had come up this morning, where a it was a referral. A lady was is looking to close on a house this week, and her loan originator needed a bunch of paperwork. Particularly, they needed the title from a home she previously owned with her former spouse transferred out of her name, because that's what the divorce decree said. Divorce decree is almost 7 years old, and there's no language in it to uh, to transfer it. So the loan underwriter wants one thing. The title company is saying they need another thing. She's calling frantically, or she called a client of mine frantically looking for a real estate attorney, because at the title company, they couldn't get a hold of the attorney they usually contact. And when it's one stop, all you have to do, and if I'm closing the transaction and a legal issue comes up, then I can handle it, and generally handle it cheaper than outsourcing it to another attorney, because there's various ways to get a transaction across the finish line, and it doesn't always have to be the most expensive.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm just curious as well, because you kind of mentioned your future title company, maybe some of the pains that people experience with, dealing with someone who's not that one-stop shop. What is title, and why is it important?
Well, title is your ownership. It tells the world, this is my property. And here in Texas, of course, it's very important, because when you own a home and you live there and that is your homestead, there are a few things that can take that from you. It is written into our Texas Constitution. Homestead rights are held very sacred, and you want to have good title to your homestead. I will give you a very good example, and it was in the news last week on Channel 13. This family of 4 or 5 uh, uh, paid cash for their home. It's a small home, but it's their home. They came to this country and have worked hard and saved up the money and purchased a home. thinking they paid cash for it, cashier's check, but nevertheless, they paid cash for it and thought they had received title. Well, what they had received was a quit claim deed. And those don't work in Texas. A quit claim deed is a deed in name only. It does nothing. It does not transfer title. It tells the world that I don't know even if I own this piece of land, but my name is somewhere and I'm going to give it to you, whatever I own. Well, if you own nothing and you give your nothing to someone, they have nothing. So in this case, they bought this property. They paid the owner, 100,000 plus of their hard-earned money. In return, they didn't receive a warranty deed. They received a quit claim deed, and was unaware that the owner didn't pay off the mortgage. So now that mortgage company is foreclosing or trying to foreclose on this property. And that's a big issue. And you see it a lot, especially buying something from an investor. And that's where I counsel my investors, and then I counsel clients I represent who are buying from an investor to really be careful going through these transactions. A quit claim deed should raise a red flag anytime. In fact, that was the issue I had this morning. The underwriter for this lender, this lady who's trying to buy her house, they said, "Oh, a quit claim deed will be fine." The title company, thankfully, was saying, "Well, no, we need to have at least a special warranty deed, and somebody needs to do it, and it needs to get done." And so, I was able to turn it around for this client quickly, and I charged her a flat fee for it, but I didn't make money off of it. I basically cover my costs to e-file it and just prepare it. But we got it done, and that's one of the benefits of when you have my company, Modern Title, and my law firm together, we can get things done quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely crucial, especially in a market, really any Texas metro, but especially Houston, where, there's a lot of activity in the market.
Well, there's a lot of activity in the market, and there's a lot of competition, and competition is good. And so as an entrepreneur and business owner, I'm constantly asking myself, both in my law practice and with this title company, how can we set ourselves apart? How can we stand out? On my law firm side, although I'm not unique in using flat fees, I'm definitely still in the minority of law firms that primarily do flat fee work, without a retainer, in those things. But in the title company, as I thought about it, and that's where the name comes from, Modern Title, is how can we, in this era of COVID now and social distancing, and looking at how the landscape is changing from in-person closings to virtual closings, how can I be at the forefront of that and work with others in terms of technology to make closings happen faster and efficiently to everyone's benefit?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely crucial, especially because it seems like, with the virus and all these different things going on in the world, we're almost stepping into a new digital era, and it sounds like you're at the forefront of it.
Well, the first thing I did when COVID, when COVID started in March of last year, and we had our first shutdown, is I looked into online notaries and became one. The Texas Secretary of State has very specific requirements as to what needs to happen when you do an online notarization. And I've closed many deals in the past year, just like you and I are on this Zoom conference right now. I've used a similar platform for online notarizations and online closings, and my clients love it. The realtors seem to appreciate it as well, because it's faster, it's more efficient, of course, from a from a timing perspective, and it's, you know, cost effective.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
I've, of course, used the online notarization to benefit my law practice as well. You know, somebody needs something notarized, we can hop on a session. I use this platform, notary.io. It's a local business, local to the state of Texas, and they're very affordable, and they handle all of the compliance part for online notarization. So you have to keep, it has to be recorded. You have to keep that for 5 years. They handle the storage, uh, of that data and whatnot, and have a very easy to use platform. And it's worked really well. I send out a link to a client, or, if husband and wife are buying a home and they're going to be together, or they're refinancing to get equity out, uh, and they're going to be together, I send them one link. They identify themselves via picture, their license, they sign their signature, and then we get on the video. I get permission to record them, walk them through what we're doing, and then, ask if they have any questions, uh, and talk about the documents, and then we're done. Then I take their signature, put it on the document, there's a specific notary signature that the company I use helped me create, that has all the metadata, or whatever the right word is for it, in the signature, uh, to show that it was done that day, and via the appropriate method. And then it's locked, and no one can edit the document, and we're done. So a closing that might take an hour or more, depending on how much paper you have to sign, now takes 20 minutes, maybe. That's if they have questions. Most of the time is spent on my end getting the documents together and notarizing them.
Sure thing, absolutely. It definitely streamlines the process and just makes it more convenient for everybody.
Well, that's what it's about, nowadays, is just having access to tools that make our lives easier, uh, and not more complicated. Again, I mentioned, I'm going to mention it a lot. In my practice, we use flat fees, and I was fortunate enough to have a friend and mentor when I went out on my own, uh, who was actually, we were opposite sides on a case. It was an eviction case, and afterwards we, became friends, and she introduced me to the concept of flat fees, and I never looked back. I mean, it was one of those things that, it just clicked. It's, as a business owner, the law firm is the business. It's, you have to look at who your customers are, and who do I want my customers to be. And I want everybody to have access to a lawyer. You shouldn't have to worry about how much it's going to cost if you send me an email, or, oh, I talked on the phone for 20 minutes. I wonder how much that's going to cost me, because I've seen it happen where that works against the client. they have a question or they have something come up, but they're afraid to call because they're afraid of what it's going to cost on an hourly basis. And that doesn't help me and it doesn't help them. So that's why I do what I do, so that people can, have access to a lawyer and to be able to pursue something without having to worry about, whether or not they can afford it.
Sure.
Obviously, obviously I have to eat. I have, a wife and 5 kids. I have, it's a business. I don't work for free, but I don't believe in uh, nickel and diming my clients. I believe that if you have an issue, let's talk about it. Let's figure out a way to resolve it, to the client's benefit and, from a business standpoint to my benefit.
Sure, absolutely. I know you touched on it earlier, maybe talking about a client being afraid to send an email or make a phone call. Could you explain what a retainer is and generally, will most attorneys charge an hourly fee or how does that work?
It just depends on what you're doing. I believe that most real estate practice can be done on a flat fee. I believe strongly in that. Um, there are instances where maybe that's not the best option, and maybe it's not in the client's best interest. Uh, Doing everything flat fee isn't exactly easy. It's a there's a lot of, you know trial and error. Oh, I charge, and mostly it's you didn't charge enough. If you're the attorney, you didn't charge enough. But a retainer is, it's a finite amount of money. It's what you have to put down up front before a lawyer even starts working on your case. Uh, and sometimes you have to pay money just to even get in the door. So you want to come in for an hour consult, that'll be $300. Now that $300 might go towards your $2,500 retainer. So if you decided to hire that lawyer, well, then you now have to come up with an additional $2,200 that's going to sit in a lawyer's trust account, just called an IOLTA, interest on lawyer's trust account. Now the interest on that account gets paid out monthly to the state bar, the Access to Justice Fund. So it is a good thing. They're doing good with that interest, but then the lawyer will draw down on those funds as they do work every month, and they'll send an invoice to the client, and it says, here's your $2,500 retainer. I did 3 hours worth of work on this at this rate. My paralegal did this much at this rate, and here's how much is left of your retainer. Now, a lot of law firms will have a floor that says when your retainer reaches this much, you have to fill it back up if you want me to continue working on your case. So you see where it's already getting scary and complicated. So you're saying, I have to maintain $2,500 with you at all times. Yes, lawyers may say yes. And of course, that's how they protect. It's a business, so they have to protect themselves. They're not trying to do anything wrong or unethical. It's just that's the way the common practice has been, and there's a growing movement to move away from that, because just as it can cause anxiety on the client side of having to pay out this money to keep their case going or to keep their lawyer engaged with them, on the business side it's a lot of time to track your hours and go through and make sure your billing software is correct. Make sure invoices are going out. Then you're trying to collect every month. And if you put a dollar amount to that time spent on the attorney side, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, wasting money and your time when you could be doing something to support the business or further along your client's case. So uh, that's the traditional model, though. And a lot of people are moving away from it. A lot of people are saying, no, I will handle this issue for you for $3,500. That's it. $3,500. And people like that because people can say, okay, I'll pay it, and then you can work out how that each attorney will have their own thoughts on how that's to be paid. It can be paid, 1,500 up front and then 1,500 in 20 days. All of that can be worked out, but it's a fixed number. It's not going to change, and the client knows that. And I think that's very important to have that worry gone. Let's focus on what your issue is. Let me focus on helping you. I don't want it in the back of your head, man, how long is this taking? Or in the days when we were still going to court, he's charging me for driving to court, sitting at court for, maybe 3 hours. All the while, an attorney's working on other cases. So an attorney can bill, can literally bill more than 24 hours in a day if you were working on multiple files. You know what I mean? And that's all gone. That's taken away with the flat fee.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how you're able to, satisfy both parties, right? You would charge them a $3,500 flat fee, and everyone's needs are met, and it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and as long as there's good communication about it up front, then uh, I haven't had any problems with it. And if somebody doesn't want to pay it, then I wish them, good luck.
sure, absolutely. I'm just curious as well, George. I'm sure a lot of other people would have this question as well. But we're kind of talking about the new digital era, things changing, things being more modern, like modern title. How do you think that platforms like Rocket Lawyer or LegalZoom are going to affect the way people transact and the real estate law industry?
They're going to keep me in business. They're going to keep my law firm, uh, and it's more on the law side. It's going to keep me in business. Case in point, the client I've been talking about who had the divorce decree that wasn't exactly written in the best way, and now she needs a deed so she can close on a house up in Dallas at the end of the week. When we spoke this morning, I asked, who is, you were told you needed to do a quitclaim deed. And of course, I walked through why that was wrong and don't do that. But the client informed me and said, well, who was preparing it? Were they preparing it and they wanted you to sign it? Oh, no, I just went to some website and was filling out blanks and, filling in blanks. I said, well, you definitely don't want to do that. I mean, if you absolutely must have a quitclaim deed, at least let me do it. We did not do a quitclaim deed. We did a special warranty deed, and it's as it's supposed to be. But things like LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer, I can appreciate and respect the entrepreneurial spirit behind it of, let's find this niche that's below a lawyer uh, that people can pay, and even better, we'll have lawyers on retainer to talk to, talk to these people. And of course, those lawyers are getting paid pennies on the dollar uh, to do it. But and but at the end of the day, those lawyers aren't really necessarily responsible for the end product, and so the person paying for it is, and they didn't go to law school for 3 years. They haven't practiced for 14. Uh, you may think you can just fill out a form and it accomplishes what you need to do, but what you're paying, and then you pay less for it, but what you're paying me for, in a sense, is to tell you what could go wrong if you don't do it right, and to help you navigate those waters. Because anybody can fill out a form, but you're paying me to tell you what that form does. And is it what you need? And to tell you whether or not you need it.
Sure,
Uh,
absolutely.
so things like Rocket Lawyer and LegalZoom, I'll give you a good example. I am in the process of doing a probate pursuant to a real estate sale. Uh, Unfortunately, a child, I say child, there's a grown adult child of two parents passed away. And the parents now are making the payments on this home that he owned. And he did a LegalZoom will, and it, it's not correct, So we're going to have to, and then to top it all off, the parents hired another lawyer to get the probate process started, and that lawyer said, well, this is never going to work because of X, Y, and Z. Well, then they called me and said, this is what we have. And I said, no, that's not true. This is, just because the kids weren't named in the will doesn't mean you can't move forward with it. They were taken care of by other means outside of probate, so it doesn't matter. You can still transfer title to this house per the will, but it it would be a lot easier if it had been done by an actual lawyer than just printed off the internet. So, things like Rocket Lawyer and LegalZoom, they're a good starting point if you want to, if you, the potential client, want to get information and maybe get a base of some questions to ask. But it's no substitute for a practicing attorney consulting with an actual lawyer.
Sure, definitely. It sounds like, consulting with an actual lawyer, you're not only able to tie up those loose ends and make sure it's done correctly, but you're also kind of paying for that peace of mind and avoiding those future headaches.
Well, and I will tell someone straight up that if they can do, whether or not they can do it themselves. Uh, I remember I was down in the Brazoria County Courthouse one day down in Angleton, and I had someone approach me and ask me if I was a lawyer. And I said, yes, I am. And they said, well, I'm getting divorced and need to speak with somebody about that. And I said, well, just tell me a little bit about the checklist of questions. Do you own property together? No. Do you have kids together? No. Did you have a bank account together? Anything together? No. The only thing we did was get married. And I said, for something like that, I would suggest you contact Legal Aid, a free service that can really help you get that done in 60 days, because that's the general wait period for divorce, 60 days. And so I'm happy to tell somebody that they can help themselves, or I can help them help themselves. But that's not as common as, you need me to help you. It's in your
Sure.
best interest.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense, George. I'm just curious as well. You'd also mentioned at the beginning of the show talking about LLC formation. So my question is, what would be the incentive for using an attorney for LLC formation when you could just do that through the Secretary of State website?
Well, you can do it, but then you still need, again, this goes back to, you're not necessarily paying me to do something that you yourself could do. You're paying me to tell you how to do it. You're paying me for what's up here, and what could go wrong, and what type of entity you may want. Uh, Especially with real estate investors, a lot of times they said, well, I'm just going to form an LLC, and I want to put this property in here. Okay, well, is the property currently mortgaged? Yeah, I'm going to move it from my name personally to ABC LLC. Well, does your deed of trust or note have a, due on sale clause, or a triggering event that could allow them to call the note in full? Well, I don't know. I didn't read it, because who goes through a deed of trust line by line? You sit there in a closing and go, you can just sign that. It's all boilerplate. And a lot of times it's standard, but at least if you don't have a working knowledge of the business, you know, and so it's questions like that: are you even allowed to change the title? Now, I will say that, you know, a mortgage company in general, just speaking in generalities, as long as you're making payments, and where it's, in general, but it's still something to be aware of. So, yeah, you can go form an LLC, but who's doing the minutes? Who's doing the operating agreement? How do you want to be, characterized for tax purposes? Are you going to be an LLC that's taxed as a C corp or an S corp? Do you want to set up a series LLC, which is what a lot of real estate folks should look into having? It's a little bit more work, but if you have multiple properties, that's the route to go. Um, Again, it's always good to have an attorney uh, advise on that. And again, that's another benefit of the flat fee. Uh, it costs, if you want to set up an LLC in Texas, it costs $308.10. That's the filing fee with the Secretary of State, and the, convenience fee and whatnot. That's what it costs, um, before a lawyer even gets involved. Then you get into the operating agreement, you get into members and managers and registered agents, and things of that nature, and uh, getting the tax ID set up. You want someone there holding your hand who's navigated those waters before.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense, George. Is there anything that you haven't said that you'd really just like to hit home?
Well, it's always good to know a lawyer. Get to know a lawyer before you need a lawyer. I am happy to talk to people. Um, I'm happy to talk to people. I'm happy to, uh, bounce ideas off, but at least, call a lawyer, talk to somebody.
Yeah.
If you have a question about title, uh, there are I teach legal 1 and 2 through Trek. It's a Trek course that you have to, to get your CE credits. It's one you take, and I'm an instructor for it. And there's fine lines for realtors when offering legal advice. That they can't. You can't talk. You can't have a realtor say, "Well, this house was owned by a husband and wife. Wife died, so it's going to go to her husband, and that's who we'll be dealing with." That's giving legal advice. That's making a comment on how title is transferred. You don't know that. A lawyer can say that, Um and I'm open to everyone. Uh, if there's ever an issue with payment, we'll work it out. No one should be afraid to get something done right, to have something done right. Uh, it's at least worth a 30-minute phone call, for which I'm not going to charge you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, George. Just curious as well. I know you touched a bit about your new title company, Modern Title. It sounds pretty exciting. What else is in the future for you? What are you looking forward to?
I'm really looking forward to getting, with the concept of modern title. I'm doing the same thing within my law firm and really modernizing the client experience. And so, soon you're going to be able to call my law firm, and there will be if you're a new client, there will be someone to listen to you, take down your questions, take down your concerns, and you're going to get, an automated email, from me with further instructions within 24 hours. There's going to be an uptick in the flow of communication. And that's really what I believe is key, is not going for too long without talking to a client. And so I'm doing that in my law practice. Modern Title is going to be launching soon. Just waiting on the Texas Department of Insurance and a few other things. But again, our focus is going to be on helping everyone grow their business. I want to help realtors grow their business. I want to help real estate investors be able to transact quickly in a cost-effective manner, because I know for real estate investors, it's all about how fast you can get a deal done, especially if you're a wholesaler. And I have a lot of wholesale clients. I love you guys. You wholesalers. That's a lot of fun. I love those deals and helping out on those. And so we're going to be making that experience efficient and different. You know, so you want to come back. My mantra is just give me your next deal. Send me your next deal. Send me your next legal question. Let me help you. Let me give you give me a chance to show you what we can do.
Absolutely. There's a lot to be said for getting that good legal counsel, George. Well, if someone's watching, maybe they have a legal question, maybe they're interested in Modern Title, they'd like to speak to you about any sort of legal questions at all, where can we find you?
Well, I have a Facebook page, Go Law Texas. My website is www.golawtexas, all spelled out, GOLAW Texas.com. And you can find me on Instagram at Go Law Texas, on LinkedIn. I have the Oggero Law Firm, and then I'm under George Oggero. And then, of course, I'm also on Facebook, George Oggero. You can find me personally that way. I'm available. You can call my office at 713-364-5759, or email me at george@golawtexas.com. That's the best way. Email me, george@golawtexas.com, is really the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Yeah, that sounds great, George. Well, I've really enjoyed our conversation, learning a bit more about you, about your background, the sort of deals that you're looking at, services you can provide, a little bit about title, about the law. And it's been a real pleasure. So thanks for coming on the show, George.
Hey, I love that you're doing this and putting this out there, and I hope to be back again. And if I'm available for any questions, so I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely.
Been a great first podcast for me.
Yeah, no, thank you, George. I'm looking forward to you getting Modern Title off the ground and you coming back on the show.
I will be certain to let you know when I do.
All right, thanks a lot, George.
All right, Aaron. Thanks. Bye bye.